Okay, so we've reached the end of April, and I know I'm not going to be finishing a book today because I'm going to be starting a book today, and I know I'm not going to be finishing it, so this will be my What I Read in April video. So I read a total of 11 books, the first one being The Switch by Sandra Brown. It's a thriller. I rated it 4.5 stars. It had great characters, a great plot, and crazy twists. The second one I read was a library book, so all the library books have been returned, so. Was a library book, no, it was a contemporary fiction, Smile and Look Pretty by Amanda Pellegrino. I rated that a 2. The characters had no personality. It was too wordy, and it was a very boring plot/storyline. A historical fiction and children's book was next, called I Survived the Destruction of Pompeii, AD 79 by Lauren Tarshis. I rated it a 3.5. I like that it was a nice palate cleanser, a quick read, a nice way to teach kids historical events. And this next one was also a library book, romance, and also Christian lit, which I did not know till I had at home, but I did give it a chance, and I gave it 3 stars. It was called, I don't know if I said it, Until I Met You by Tari Ferris. There's insufferable characters, constant preaching. Didn't end up reading close enough to know it was Christian lit, or I would not have gotten it. And the only reason I really picked it up was because it was one of the letters I hadn't done yet for the alphabet challenge, and that's like the only reason. The next book I read was one of my own, Beyond That the Sea by Laura Spence Ash. This was a historical fiction. I rated it 4.5 stars. It had amazing characters and storyline. It was a slower pace, and it was hauntingly beautiful. And then the next book I read was Heaven is for Real by Todd Burpo. I know it's considered Christian lit, but I've always been curious at reading it, so I kind of consider it, it is obviously religious undertones and whatever, but I feel like it kind of reads more like a memoir anyway, since it's about a real family's life, and that's what it seemed more like. So I considered it a nonfiction memoir, Christian lit. I rated it 4 stars. It was very interesting. It was a page turner. I ended up reading it in one day, and technically in one sitting, really. The next book I read was another library book. It was a romance. It was called The Cafe Between Pumpkin and Pie by Marina Adair, Kate and Angel. It's like Angel, but with 2 L's. I don't know. And Stacy Finns. I rated it 2.5 stars. So the way the book was like short stories. Well, not really short stories, more like novellas, where each of the authors did their own novella about a character falling in love in the same town. It was so wordy. Every story felt like everyone was hung up on their high school loves. That's all it really was. And I'm just like, I know it took place in a small town, which I could see it being more like that. But I'm just like, why? Couldn't you be a little more creative with that? I don't know. The next book I read was The Me I Used to Be by Jennifer Ryan. This was another library book, so I don't have it. It was a crime and romance, 2.5. It really, really felt like a sequel. Like, I felt like I dropped into the middle of something I didn't even know anything about. And I'm like, okay. There was, like, this whole backstory. And I'm not gonna, like, get too into it, but, like, it was like you should have already known all the stuff that's happened. And I'm thinking, is this a sequel? Because this seems like this is a sequel. So I went and I looked at her, she's written a lot of books, but they're all in series, or, like, at least, like, a book and a sequel, or something. So I'm thinking, and I found out it's not a sequel. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe she only just knows how to write series or sequels, because it really didn't. I don't know. And it was like I said, it's written like the reader should already know what's going on. And it's like, I don't know what's going on. The next book I read, excuse me, was historical fiction called Empty Places by Kathy Cannon Weichman. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I tried, okay. I rated it 4 stars. It was a page turner, and I liked how they showed an alcoholic character. And I also learned how, I read, like, author's note afterwards, because I had a lot of information on, like, coal miners, if you didn't maybe already know some of the history behind that. And I didn't know this, but the term alcoholic did not exist in 1932, and I found that interesting because, like, I guess I thought the term had been around longer. So I like that they kind of incorporated that, you know, people didn't know it was an actual issue or an addiction like we know today. And I really liked how it showed how dangerous or hard a miner's life is. Although I already knew this, but, like, you know, someone else that might come across historical fiction like this might not know this. So, the next book I read was a contemporary fiction called Light on Snow by Anita Shreve. I rated it 4.5 stars. It had an amazing storyline and characters. I really liked it. And I've read The Pilot's Wife by her, and also Eden Close by her, and out of all the ones I've read, I loved Light and Snow the best. Or liked it the best, or whatever. And the final book I read was a fantasy novel called The Star Shepherd by Dan Haring and Marcy Kate Connolly. I rated this 2 stars. It just really wasn't for me. In a way, it was like, I can see where it looked kind of complicated or whatever, but the whole idea was really simplistic. And I'm not going to get too far into what it was like, but it's like, all you're doing is rescuing these stars, like literal stars falling out of the sky. And, like, they need to go to their families so they can be together in death, or else they'll die alone. That's kind of the, like, simplistically the premise of it. And I'm just like, why? I don't know. So, for my read through the alphabet challenge, I ended up completing 3 letters. The letter U for Until I Met You. The letter C for Cafe, the cafe between pumpkin and pie. And the letter E for Empty Places. And then I ended up reading one thriller, One. Two contemporary fictions, one fantasy. Three historical fictions, one children's, two romances, two Christian lits, one being a nonfiction and a memoir, and one that was also technically, well, separate book, was considered crime. So yeah, I read a lot in April compared to my last few months because we're wrapping up on the school year and I've been really taking advantage of that and just reading since I'm almost done. And cause my last month in March I read 7, so I read 4 more books this month than I did in March, so I'm happy about that. And I'm hoping for May I'll have some better books because a few of these were lower ended rankings, and I'd like some of or most of what I read for May to be higher ranking ones and that's partially why I'm going to stick to my bookshelf. But then again, some of them, like The Star Shepherd, did come from my bookshelf, which was one of the lower ratings, if not the lowest. But yeah, I might just stick to my bookshelf for May. I know I say that now, but so yeah, that's what I read in April.